that was meant to happen. I truly believe like that was all meant to happen. I was meant to have that breakdown. And I couldn't say breakdown, by the way, not then. My family were whispering, she's having a breakdown. And I was
Mm.
like, no, I'm not. Like just adamant. Like that for me was like weakness back then. And I think I now know a part of me was so scared that I'd be like my dad and wheeled into a hospital. That it was like, no, I'm fine. But it allowed me to find vulnerability, and it allowed me to reframe my beliefs around my own sensitivity and around my own trauma. Rather than focusing outwards, it got me to kind of go, hold on a minute, you get to look at this now, kind of thing. As hard as that was.
Welcome to the Deeper Awareness Podcast, where we delve into the depths of our inner selves, uncovering authenticity and transformation. Join us for enlightening conversations on breathwork, self-discovery, and the profound journey within. I'm your host, Josh Perry, joined by the delightful Hannah Oxley. Let's begin. Yeah, I feel like this is the gift of this podcast for me. It's the meeting new people because I've seen your face on the Josh Connolly Zoom, but we haven't interacted.
I know. I feel like I know you. Like, you've just got such a friendly, warm face and great energy. I'm like, I've known this person for a while. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Well,
get goosebumps when you say that. I love stuff like from another lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah.
You just know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also, Hannah and I have fun with having people in Europe or Great Britain on to hear the messiness of humanity
Mhm.
spans the oceans. Like it's everywhere. It's so similar,
Yeah.
but it's uniquely different, but also so similar too.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with how powerful that is. I think since COVID, actually, since lockdown, and I think since going deeper into the work and widening connections on Zoom, because I didn't even know what Zoom was
Same.
pre-lockdown.
Same.
But the people I've met, I swear I've got like better friends of strangers that I met on the internet across the world than I may have had in person in my local town.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because the proximity doesn't mean anything really.
No.
Like you have certain things in common because maybe your generations have been there of your family and whatnot. Like that's something to have in common, which is the nice
Yeah.
thing. Like for me, like I still in the town that my grandfather and my parents grew up in. But to like, and I realized that like in high school, like being miserable with the people around me and then like going off into college with finding people that have the same things. And so this is still like yet another step, like
Yeah.
worldwide, finding people that are on the same path as you. Because when I found breathwork, I thought I had to move. I was like, I'm going to have to move to find people that will understand this. But then I thought too, like, it doesn't exist here I'm right outside of Boston.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist here. Why not? Like, that's what an opportunity, also. I would just have to brave the thought of me having to introduce it to people, but that's almost better than having to compete with like a
Mhm.
whole bunch of other people. So, pros and cons to each situation. But yeah, it's just finding those people just to at least talk to and reflect with is so powerful.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I found
Love
so
that.
many more friends during COVID too, communities and all such.
Well, your community is in for a treat with the breath.
Yeah. Yes.
Bring it on.
Thank you.
Well, Jess, we're really excited to have you on. And to start off, would you just tell us about yourself, like an intro, and then we're excited to hear your story.
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's so good to be here with you both in this very beautiful space. I'm Jess Frost. I am now an empowerment coach, breathwork teacher, conscious connected breathwork. I work in different spaces. So I work within kind of the healing and empowerment space with my coaching. but also in the workplace, working with leaders, doing the inner work with leaders, which literally makes me so excited. So a kind of broad array, very holistic in my approach. And that's been something that's naturally evolved. So I'm sure we'll touch on that. But yeah, that is what I do now. Very different to me a few years ago,
I
which
can't
I'm
wait to
sure
hear
we'll get
that. Yeah. Because that's what we love to hear is the before, the after, and then that part in the middle that made you pivot, made everything in your life just suddenly be like, wait, I'm here for something different. I have to change. Something's got to change here. So we love those stories.
Oh, I can give you that story. I can give you a story. Where would you like me to start?
Wherever feels good, wherever we want to be able to understand you. So a little bit, about where you're coming from and
Yeah,
led you to that life pivot.
amazing. So yeah, what I forgot to mention was that a lot of the work I do is working with high achieving human beings, men, women, non-binary, who tend to reach burnout, overworkers, perfectionists. But most recently, I've really kind of niched, I guess, into supporting adult children of alcoholics. So it's really important I mention that and kind of preface my story. So I grew up in Middle England, middle of England, in a little city called Leicester, and on the face of it, very privileged upbringing. And I told myself that for a long time. Oh, had the perfect childhood, and I was told it as well. I grew up with my parents and my little sister. But the reality behind closed doors was that my dad really struggled with his mental and emotional health. And he would be in and out of psychiatric care a lot of the time. So he'd be absent from the family home. So there'd be a lot of visiting him in a hospital environment, which back then was so different even to what it is now. Quite scary for children to go into that environment where my dad was just not there, heavily medicated. And my mum was the breadwinner. Like she was always stressed, bless her, always stressed. We had childcare kind of drafted in to help her out. So my mum equally wasn't around a lot. She worked in the kind of fashion environment, and my dad was in the kind of advertising space. So both very creative family, household, but behind closed doors, there was a lot of chaos and a lot of dysfunction, we now know. And a lot of my childhood was caretaking, really, having to be very quiet, having to be very careful that I didn't upset my dad, be a good girl, look after my sister. Um, and yeah, this kind of pattern just grew and grew into more kind of codependent relationships, dynamics. But we we moved from Leicester into kind of a village outside the city, and it was the beautiful village, very affluent. A lot of people from kind of London, UK would end up moving out to that kind of area. I was in great education, so on the face of it, again, it looked idyllic. But my dad had been made redundant by this point. He'd lost his job. Money was really tight, and the stress levels for the whole family were through the roof. Again, my dad in and out of psychiatric care. And he ended up leaving us to join a cult, which we now know. I remember saying these stories to people growing up. It was literally like, oh, yeah, I can just tell my story to anyone in the supermarket. But hearing it back now, I'm like, wow, okay. So my dad was a very sensitive human, deeply, deeply, highly sensitive, always on a quest to understand his purpose. So actually, we have so much in common in that respect. Very creative, loved music, but he was always, the only way I can describe it is he was not there. He was just not there. He was thinking about the bigger picture. He was numbing out a lot more with alcohol. He was getting involved in drugs with this now cult that we now know as a cult, a quite dangerous one. And yeah, he ended up leaving us, leaving the family home. And I vividly remember my mum that day kind of holding mine and my sister's hands, just like, okay, girls, should we go swimming?
Mm.
And we were like, okay. And it was kind of very much just crack on, business as usual, face like smile, everything's fine. And that's what we did. That's what we did as a family. That was our coping mechanism. My dad, his mental health deteriorated, ended up coming back into hospital. So he was kind of back in contact with us. We took him back into the family home, but things started to really deteriorate at that point with his alcohol dependency. And yeah, we ended up moving house a lot. There was still this money trouble. And things really came to a head. I think one of the most pivotal years for me that I can really remember is when I was about 18 years old, and my dad was still out of work. His alcohol dependency had gone through the roof, and we discovered that his parents had taken their lives together in a suicide pact. And it was that moment that I just knew this is not going to go well at all. This is going to get so much worse. And I think my role as caretaker took on another level, because my dad, as you can imagine, it was horrendous what he was navigating. He was an only child. He got so much unprocessed trauma from his own childhood. And then for this to happen, it was heartbreaking to see my dad in that situation. And then my mum was equally falling apart, having held everything up for so long. She was starting to go. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm going to lose both parents. Like, they're both going to go. Like, they're not going to be able to get through this. And that was me, like, okay, my role in life is here. This is where I shine. I'll look after everyone. I'll be the one that makes sure everyone's okay. I looked after my little sister. And miraculously, I don't know how, although I do know how, knowing how trauma affects a lot of adult children, is I went to university still that year. I got into university at Warwick University in the UK, which is a very good uni, and studied psychology, desperate to understand what was going on in my own home. Like,
Right.
that was it. It was like, how do humans work? I need to understand this.
Right.
So went to university and had like pockets of escape. I could disappear for a while, check in on my family. But the reality was I didn't go to the lectures, and I just ended up drinking myself. So that was when my alcoholism shot up. Drugs, I found cocaine. So it was like amazing. I don't have to feel anything. I can just numb out. But the guilt, I think, for leaving my sister at home to deal with everything was a lot to carry as well. So university was very much about me kind of racing back home to deal with a crisis, going back to uni, kind of numbing out. And yeah, I managed to just scrape through getting a qualification in psychology, and fell into recruitment. So I worked for 15 years in a very fast-paced recruitment environment, which I think a lot of my psychology peers did. And it was great because I got to work with humans. It was like I got to use a bit of the psychology and work with people to find their ideal jobs. But behind the scenes was still dealing with the secret, still dealing with the family secret, still trying to keep it hidden from the world. My dad would like turn up to reception drunk at work, and I'd have to kind of get him out and get him back home. And his living situation was really bad because he was at that point living on his own. So it was kind of dealing with the reality of his personal hygiene, inviting strangers to live with him that were homeless. Our family dog was in there, so I had to get the dog out. And I felt like for a lot of that period of my life, I was just the punch bag, my dad, and his pain. With his alcoholism, there wasn't any physical violence, but there was a lot of emotional manipulation, name calling, and a lot of threats of suicide to me and my sister, which at the time felt normal. But I now can see the impact that that had on my nervous system and my hypervigilance and state of calm. So this carried on for a few years. He got taken into assisted living by that point, which kind of took a bit of the weight off me and my sister. But I was starting to crack behind the scenes. I've been able to sustain this mask or multiple masks of smiley, like very good at work. I was high achieving, that people looking at it would think I was the perfect employee. Overworked, over exceeded, would do anything to help anyone, was often the emotional support for my colleagues and my bosses. So on the face of it to other people, it looked fine. But then what would be the reality is I was living often on my own or in a turbulent relationship where I would be drinking a lot myself at home. Still highly functioning, but numbing out in any way, shape or form. So I didn't have to feel my own pain. Fast forward a few years, my dad luckily got sober. I'd say 2016 kind of time. It was my football team, Leicester City in the UK, that won the Premier League in the UK. And my dad and me were no contact at that point. But he used to take me to Leicester City all the time as a kid. And it's how I learned to swear. That was our bonding. That was our escape. That was our way of being together throughout the chaos. And we were no contact, but Leicester won the league. And it was at that point that I kind of reinstated the contact. And from that point on, we've been able to build a relationship that works for us, where I feel safe, very boundaried. And he's maintained a degree of sobriety ever since then. But what happened was I had my own breakdown in 2017. So my dad's alcohol, his sobriety, should I say, did not take away the pain. It wasn't like a magic pill that was like, ping, everything's fine now, we can be friends. It was like almost like the silence of his sobriety and the lack of chaos forced me to look at myself and the dysfunction and the addiction in myself, addiction to cortisol, drama, codependent dynamics. And yeah, it was in 2017 where I was actually working out in New York and I was living in Brooklyn. And it was amazing. Like I remember when I went out there to do this work, a contract where I was working in Manhattan, living in Brooklyn. I was going to be going to Miami to launch an office out there. And again, on the face of it, everyone was like, wow, Instagram life, this is looking perfect. And I'm like, oh, on my stoop in Brooklyn. And yeah, I was drinking so much, again, found drugs, got into messy dynamics. And yeah, I ended up resigning from this job in New York with nothing to go to, walking across Brooklyn Bridge with like coffee cups hanging out of my bag and like shoes hanging out of my rucksack, just looking at the office from Brooklyn Bridge going, what the hell am I going to do now? Like I've actually got a tattoo of Brooklyn Bridge on my arm because it reminds me of that moment where everything went. But at the same time, and I've heard people talk about this when they've almost had like psychosis episodes, where it's like there's this inner knowing something bigger is coming for you. It was this real duality of like, shit, what am I going to do with my life? I've got no job. My relationship was going to tatters. He was in the UK, I was out in New York. I knew I'd made mistakes. I knew that I couldn't sustain the relationship. I was drowning in shame. But there was this fire in me that was like, there's something, you need to be doing something different. You're not meant to do this work. So yeah, I came back to the UK, my relationship ended. And I remember kind of dragging this massive suitcase around with me in 2017 and sleeping on my mum's couch. And trying to build my life again. So yeah, it was kind of a very much a build myself from the ground up from that point of no job, no relationship, 20K's worth of debt. Very typical for adult children, codependence. And yeah, had no clue where I was, no clue what I was going to do. And that's where the next part of the journey, I guess, began. So just to cram it in a little nutshell. Thank you for hearing my TED talk.
It was beautiful. I was there with you
Wow.
on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, mad when I think about it now. I can still feel the emotions of it.
Mm.
Like there was a part of me that was so, and this wasn't the first time I've had outbursts in corporate. There's this part of me that's like, feels like, do you know, that I want to fight injustice and I want to fight people's view of sensitivity and some of the stuff that's stigmatized in the workplace. But then I'm the one that ends up like, they're like, oh God, now what? So yeah, that was meant to happen. That was truly believe like that was all meant to happen. I was meant to have that breakdown. And I couldn't say breakdown, by the way. Not then. My family were whispering, she's having a breakdown. And I was
Mm.
like, no, I'm not. Like adamant. Like that for me was like weakness back then. And I think I now know a part of me was so scared that I'd be like my dad and wheeled into a hospital. That it was like, no, I'm fine. But it allowed me to find vulnerability and it allowed me to change my reframe my beliefs around my own sensitivity and around my own trauma. Rather than focusing outwards, it got me to kind of go, hold on a minute, you get to look at this now, kind of thing, as hard as that was.
I love that.
I feel like we could have 20 episodes with you, Jess, and just like really honor like every moment, like every experience that it like I could just feel the heaviness
Mm.
of the well, your dad and all that he's gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And then him trying to be a dad and trying to be a husband
Yeah,
with all the generation like that time,
yeah,
society didn't know what to do with him. He was perceived as broken
yeah,
and almost banished.
yeah,
And then these two girls being raised in that space. And it
yeah.
goes back, generations.
Gosh, it does. It really does. And the part of the story I didn't mention that is really relevant to that is that, in my mum's side of the family as well, my mum lost her mum to suicide. So that's 3 out of 4 grandparents.
Mm.
And I think the legacy of trauma and the legacy of pain like met with, like you say, the stigma and the lack of support and the lack of understanding. And over here in the UK is very much like a stoic, crack on, don't talk about it, brush it off. Like my mum was very much like, I don't want to take medication. I'm not going to take anything. I just want to exercise. She wanted to exercise through it and work through it. And like we've now all had to face the physical manifestations of this, autoimmune diseases, gut problems, hormone problems. Like that's now what we're starting to see. So it's interesting for us to be able to find more holistic approaches to the stuff that just wasn't available then. So it's that duality. And that's what inner child healing, I know you've done in you, haven't you, with Josh, of just being able to honor the duality of the whole situation of I can totally in one breath look at both my dad and my mum and their parents and etc. and go, I totally understand. Whilst also being like, I did not deserve that. That was not okay. and we deserved more. So that's been the powerful aspect, I think, of my own healing journey, of being able to hold two realities at the same time. And I think to be able to say it out loud when my dad's sober and alive and my mum's here, like, yeah, so much gratitude for them for supporting me to do that. Very brave.
Mm.
I I've been thinking a lot about this thing we're calling a healing journey.
Mm,
That phrasing indicates something created a need for healing.
mm,
And if it's like a physical thing, let's say there's a village that keeps drinking water that's bad
mm.
and people are getting sick, then we understand, oh, don't do that. The water is the problem. But
Yeah.
it feels like we as a society are spending that there's so many people that are recognizing healing is necessary and needed. And I don't know if we fully understand what is the water in the situation that that because right now it feels like my kids are going to need to go on their healing journey too. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, it feels like it needs to be two-pronged, that there's the healing journey, but there's also the what the fuck is going on in our society
Yeah.
that is creating the need for people to have a healing journey.
Oh my goodness. Again, another whole podcast on this. Like, get me on the soapbox. But I think we're all going to have different takes on this, and nothing's right or nothing's wrong, isn't it? I think when we get curious about this stuff, for me, I think if I was to reflect on my own healing journey and like generational legacy, I think Western medicine, Western wellness can be on this huge quest to feel good and to like mask pain, not to feel pain. And I think one of the biggest parts of my healing journey has been the emotional side of like allowing ourselves to build emotional literacy, of being able to explore what it is that we're navigating and what we're feeling, to not attach stigma and judgment and shame to those things, and to find ways to let it be released. And I think in my dad's case and my mum's case, and there was just this, let's medicate to deal with this. And then you've got the alcohol industry, which is profited to numb out. And one of the easiest tools to use to numb this. So we're being sold all these things that help hide the root causes. And I think when we are shaming parts of a very natural response, like we're holding that in, whether that's the emotion and that's manifesting in dis-ease, or whether that's narratives about ourselves and core beliefs that we have on the basis of what we experience around us. You know, there were, for me personally, I wasn't modeled how to healthily process and sit with and express your emotions, how to ask for your needs. All I saw was stress, anger, silent treatment, like, and I just wonder what it'd look like if there'd been that freedom to feel and that lack of stigma around, yeah, just not being okay and feeling grief, pain, shame, all of that. So yeah, that's just a one tiny, tiny part that Yeah, I think people like Gabor Mate, for example, like that people that are questioning what has been our normal for so long in the Western world and being like, what is underneath addiction? It's pain, it's trauma, it's unprocessed emotion. And yeah, the addiction was just a very easy tool in the world we live in. It could have been anything, you know, drugs, sex, porn, like food. But yeah, that's my separate TED talk. How about you guys?
Well, everything, I mean, everything you're saying is like just so spot on to what I see too. Like I think there's also like if if we lived in a perfect world where we all didn't have to go on a healing journey, it's just seems so foreign as I've been so grateful for my dark depths that I've gone because I've been able to experience so much light. So I don't know if it's still a necessary thing to experience, but because I guess I just can't even fathom what it would feel like to just live a life full of just asking, just like you mentioned, like being able to freely ask for your needs, being able to freely respond emotionally to anything that comes up. I don't know what that life would feel like.
I know.
Growing
Yeah.
up, growing up, not having to be the good girl and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I don't even know what it would be like.
Yeah. I think that's it. And I think the reality of the situation is so many of us didn't get that opportunity to fully like co-regulate and to develop a sense of self
Hmm.
because it's been so much about that other person or other
Right.
people. And I think that's where the focus then gets totally diverted and will push so much authenticity and beautiful things down and all of that shame. And I think, yeah, it's like a journey back to self, isn't it? Like that you
Hmm.
end up going on when you're like, hold on a minute, the cracks are too gaping now. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to deal with this. And then yeah, that's how it's felt to me of just like just a
Yeah.
journey back, like an unlearning
Hmm. Yeah, I
to
remember
reclaim
because
myself again.
right, exactly. My story is kind of like I had to I'm similar to you. I have a younger sister. So just growing up having to, be a good role model for her.
Mm.
And just not being able to express much emotion, just growing up that way and just holding all that emotion in. But I remember like before I got sick, I remember just having this desire to be more assertive. I was like, I need to be more assertive in life. And just the thought of it terrified me. Like any sort of confrontation was just terrifying to me. So I was like, how will I ever? I couldn't even start to find the path of how I would find that that way to be more assertive. And then I got really, really sick. It was all my gut. And it's exactly what you said, the dis-ease that holding in all that emotion for my whole life had caused.
Yeah.
And on the going through all of the couple years of trying to just find my health, realizing that my mind had to heal too, and how I needed to let emotion go, and just discovering all those things and those really dark depths that that health journey brought me. I came out on the other side feeling assertive. So, so that's where I find so much gratitude
Mm.
for having to go through that. But of course, in the midst of it, I was like, why me? Why is this happening to me? I've never done anything wrong in my life. I've done everything I need to do in order to be a good person. Why is this happening to me? Why do I feel this sick all the time? I can't leave my house. Like, why? Why me? Why me? Why me? And now I look back like, thank you, which still blows my mind to this day that I can be grateful for how miserable I was. But knowing that I have everything that it taught me, I wouldn't change a thing.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that the body's so powerful, isn't it? And
Oh my
intuitive
God.
to give us the signals of like enough already. Like when will
Hmm.
you see me?
Yeah.
Um, I'm
Oh,
so
you want to
intrigued.
be assertive? Let's make you assertive. It's going to
Yeah,
take
you
two
want to be set.
years.
Here you go. I'm so intrigued. Like, what would you say were like the key? ways that helped you to become assertive and heal from the like physical stuff?
Well, it's still definitely a process. Like when,
Mm.
like before having not even a little, I knew I had the desire to want to be assertive but I didn't. And now that I have that little flame, I'm just starting to learn
Mm.
how to feed it.
Yes.
Because I thought I was just going to do my job for the rest of my life, be miserable. I thought that's just what life was.
Yeah.
Um, but it was because I had to say, I was at first just saying yes to all the doctors, just whatever they
Mm.
would tell me to do. I'd think, okay, more steroids, I guess so. Even though they make me feel crazy. I guess if that's what you're saying I have to do, that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Um, and then, all these other medications. It was like, sure, yep, okay. And then finally one day I was like, I'm this is making me worse. This is making me sicker. And so that's when I was like, who's gonna who's advocating for me? No one. The doctors that are supposed to be the people we answer to, that you just say, yes, you're the expert. I finally, to them, I said, no, like,
Yeah.
just no. I'm going to take a different alternative approach. And so just being able to be like, wow, I can make a decision for myself. I have to make that decision for myself, or else I'm still just going to be so sick.
Yeah.
And so that's I think where it stemmed from. And then when I was starting to do it on my own, listening to what my body needs, that's when I was like, okay, I need to meditate or do something that helps my mind, will calm my stomach. And I know that that's a connection that I need to make.
Yeah.
And then finding breath work. And so that was just the catalyst too, to just being like, that was my first mantra ever, like doing a breath work was like, I am the creator of my life. And that's where that assertiveness, I think, started to stem from.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Resonates so much. Like when I was back in New York and at my mum's, I remember like her talking about gluten and being like, "You need to cut out gluten. It's not good for you." But there was no kind of awareness on both our parts, I think, around why we were sensitive to
Right.
certain things. So it'd be like changing my diet up. And now it's about like looking at my hormones and seeing the different things that are slightly out of kilter that way. But yeah, it was fascinating to kind of to see autoimmune and sensitivities and allergies and all this stuff as just oh, it's just a thing the doctor doesn't understand. And it's like, hold on a minute. Doesn't that suggest that there could be something else happening here? So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
Goodbye gluten. I've not touched it since.
See, I was told that I can go over to Europe and it's different, that the bread is different now.
France, yeah. So
France.
when I
Okay.
go to France, because my mum lives out there half the year, when I go visit her, she like we can have like the baguettes out there, the bread out there. It's because they've got different magic things that
Hmm.
not so much of the like artificial binding that we use
Right.
here. It's all very fresh and different flowers and stuff. So yeah, France, try the baguettes. Not in the UK.
Or in the US, even
No.
though I have a part-time job at a farm and we do get fresh bread and the most of it is like a sourdough base and I seem to be okay with that. My stomach is fine with all of that. And it's because it's fresh, it's made locally, so it's same thing. But any other bread in the grocery stores, I always
Uh-uh.
I can tell instantly, skin and hair and everything. I just don't feel good after.
Same. What did Ryan Gosling? I read a quote the other day that he put that basically was like, in LA, you could rob a bank with a bagel because everyone's so terrified of gluten. But yeah, like, yeah, we were like literally trying loads of different things to feel better with no idea that actually it was probably something way deeper than we ever realized.
Hmm. Because I went on that journey too of when also didn't want to, when I started not wanting to listen to the doctors, it was like, okay, well, they told me I couldn't heal this by food, which doesn't make any sense at all. So I tried to do that, but that's also part of it that got me into the more holistic approach, be like, okay, there's other ways to heal. And then also no realizing that it's in my mind too. In my emotions, in my mind. Um, it's a full body, soul thing that needs to happen that you need to wake up to. in order
Yeah.
to heal whatever it is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Jess, take us back to that moment. So you're on the bridge.
Yeah.
I just love the metaphor of the bridge too, and like being able to see your actual like job and stuff. I love that metaphor.
Yeah. It
Where was
is
where was the bridge leading you in that metaphor? Across what into what?
100%. It's beautiful actually, because underneath the tattoo of Brooklyn Bridge, there's a quote that's my sister's handwriting,
Oh,
and it says, "Anything's possible. We're in this together."
Mm.
And that was done way before I went to America. And it just fits so beautifully to have that over that, because that was when my dad was really bad with his alcoholism, where we literally thought he's not going to live. No
Mm.
way. So yeah, it is beautiful. I've not been back to New York, so hopefully I can go back and kind of put some energy to bed there. But yeah, okay, I'm picturing it. I'm on the bridge. I've taken myself back. Shall I tell you what I did next then?
Yeah.
yeah. How did you find breath work, and
Yeah.
how did you begin to listen to that knowing, and what did you do with it?
So came back to the UK, was staying at my mum's, and I got a job in recruitment in Nottingham in the UK, where I'm now based. That was a beautiful foundation for me. It was a company that really actually valued well-being. I'd got a great team around me. So it allowed me to take some of that pressure off and just kind of have that stability for a while. And that's when I kind of discovered codependency. I'd never heard of that term before. I was like listening to all of the podcasts, like reading all the books, couldn't get enough of it. Um, Very cognitive, like I was learning it all, which was my kind of beginning stage. And then it was around that time that I met Nick. We met at a jazz festival. Nick was also doing his own inner work. So that was really cool. We were kind of met at a similar stage of the journey. And when when lockdown happened, that was like the perfect time for me to deepen this whole process. So I moved from kind of reading the books, listening to the podcasts, to joining empowerment groups. So I found Erica Kramer, who's known as the Queen of Confidence in Australia. And she had a sisterhood online. So I joined that. And that really helped me, like, again, continue this cognitive healing of understanding my thoughts, understanding my emotions, um, and being around other people doing the work. That was a game changer. That really kept the momentum going for me. And that was the point where I really decided, okay, I want to go into some form of self-development in terms of my career. And I hired my first coach, who was trained in neurolinguistic programming, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy. And she helped me with the foundation of leaving the corporate world and jumping out into my own business, helped me with money mindset, like all of the stuff that I didn't even know I had trauma attached to. I was like, right. So we worked with a lot of the foundations of my confidence, of money. And then in April 21, that's when I started my own coaching business and started training in all the same things. So NLP, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, and empowerment coaching. And from then, really, it's been a slow burner in terms of my healing. I can now see that at the beginning, I was very much keeping myself up here and safe. And I think that's quite common for a lot of adult children of alcoholics and a lot of like hyper independent people. It was safer for me to learn all about it and be almost like the expert in my trauma. I was like, yeah, totally understand. It's this. But then it was when I found Josh Connolly and did Inner You that I was like, oh, I've been doing a little fraction of the work. And now I need to feel it, which was like terrifying. But Inner You and that process of like validating myself and my experiences, finding that duality that I mentioned earlier, getting angry, like seeing everyone in my story through different lenses, good and bad, like connecting with my little one, my inner child, and finally seeing and hearing her, coupled with the breath work. Oh my God. I remember messaging Josh like near the like week 6. And I was like, Josh, I have got the most intense pain in like my shoulders and neck. And like it had moved from my stomach, which I store a lot of my trauma, I think, and energy in hips. It like slowly through inner you, like moved to my body.
Mm.
I was like, I am in so much pain. This is awful. What have you done? Joking. But like it slowly moved out. Like it was mad. It came out the top of my head, like through the rest of the breath work. But that was really the first time that I have sobbed for me. Because I'm a highly sensitive person, which I can now say with pride. But I'd cry for other people. So like watching the news, like hearing someone's story, hearing someone else's podcast, I'd be like, oh, like mine, nah, other people have it worse. So it allowed me to really feel for little one and honor it all. And that, honestly, I think that took my healing journey and my business to a whole new level. I was like, what is this magic of this breath work? Who did you train with? How do I do it? So yeah, I ended up training with John Paul Crimmy like Josh and just bringing a whole new lens into my own practice with my clients, bringing in different modalities like elements of internal family systems, bringing far more of a nervous system regulation approach, realizing that as a coach, it was easy actually at the beginning and sometimes very easy for other coaches to kind of help people with these massive goals and strive towards these huge things when actually for people that have experienced trauma and for people that are sensitive, that's really threatening for the nervous system. So yeah, it kind of everything came together, like all the jigsaw pieces were like, right, how can I help myself heal? How can I bring these modalities into my coaching to make it, yeah, just as best suitable for everyone, but especially adult children of alcoholics that have been through something similar, that need a slow burner, that need something that considers how their trauma's impacted their body, but also the patience and the trust when you've been so independent and you've got such strong armor. That's been why it's evolved massively over time.
So I have a realization as you were sharing that there's something in me that if so I grew up very religious and for many people that religion benefited them.
Mm.
But for me it really negatively impacted me. And then I think about society similarly, that same pattern that it's like, oh, society seems to be working for many people, but for me, it's not working at all. It's negatively impacting me. And so then I don't want to speak. I don't want to, because of the people that it's working for, I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I just need to figure this out I, so that it works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense. And it feels like, you know how people describe like being the black sheep of the family and you start to notice the dysfunction. That's what it feels like in the wider machine.
Mm,
Like you're looking at the powers that be and you're looking at institutions and you're looking at it from that lens of like, hold on, no one's seeing this,
yeah.
just me. But it's so true, isn't it? Like actually that same system is happening everywhere.
Mm.
And sometimes we wake up to it. but often there's only a few of us. But the more we share our truth, the people that need it hear it.
Mm.
That's what I've had to ground in. It'd be so easy, because the whole thing about being like in dysfunction is don't speak, don't feel, don't trust. That's like hardwired. And that can be hardwired in other institutions like religion, like whatever those core beliefs can become core beliefs. So it's really scary, isn't it, to like start speaking against the tide. But yeah, I always remember my coach saying, the more silent you are, they're not going to find you. If you don't speak, they will never find you. But what if you're stopping someone helping themselves? And I was like, oh God, okay.
I'll do it.
But yeah, I really relate to what you said. And I think so many people feel feel similar in one way, shape, or form, whether it's religion or other institutions. Absolutely. And definitely the wider world and the power dynamics that are out there.
So I've been thinking about society, and it seems like it would make sense that we would want a society that works for everyone.
Mm.
And then which would require hearing and understanding those that the society is not working for. And then can we shift it and modify, understanding that there's so much complexity.
Mm.
So it feels like this may have happened in the 60s with race and gender, and
Mm.
now there's more openness, um, and there's also more resistance too. A lot of
Yeah.
people pushing back, still wanting, maybe afraid, but it's probably from that trauma
Yeah.
response place,
Yeah.
where the more work, it seems like the more inner work we're doing, the more compassion and understanding I have for everyone, that
Mm-hmm.
I can put myself in a murderer's shoes and be like, okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pain there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's not evil. There's pain there from my lens. And so maybe that's what this, this awakening is this opportunity for us to really embrace compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
But we have to
Absolutely.
get there with ourselves, right? First.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the hard reality, I think, when you look at the big picture, because I have a tendency to go like big picture. And I look at the whole thing and I'm like, oh, the world. Oh God. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it starts with us, and that's the hardest thing. It's out of our control, isn't it? Like whether someone's ready to turn the mirror around and kind of do that deep work that can lead to that level of connection and compassion and curiosity. Um, but I think if we can focus on us and the micro changes, like that's what fills me with hope, is conversations like this, is what I can do in my local community. It's breaking generational legacies that would have passed down. That keeps me going rather than looking out on the world. I think Glennon Doyle describes the world as like brutal and beautiful. And I'm like, that is so perfect. Like, but yeah, there's a lot of days where I can look out on it and go, this is brutal.
Mm.
Like, brutal. It's
And
fucked.
that can be very intimidating and paralyzing when we try to
Yeah.
solve the
Yeah.
whole problem. But we are solving the whole problem when we just start, like you said, just with
Yeah.
ourselves and even
Yeah.
our own communities.
Absolutely. Especially like for me as a recovering rescuer, I have to work incredibly hard to not take responsibility for too much
Hmm.
outside. Um, because I want to solve it all and I want to help everyone and I want to do all of that. And no, I burn out within seconds. So yeah, it just knowing about what we can control. And like I say, that those little ripples, the little butterfly effect,
Hmm.
that we are making a difference. We might not see it in our lifetime, what we'd love to see, but it is having a beautiful impact. And if we can find some of that hope and freedom and love internally that we can't often see outside, I think that's amazing.
It's beautifully said.
Thank you.
So, who are you working with now?
In terms of
Clients.
so the type of clients.
Uh-huh.
So I work so in leadership wise in the workplace stuff we do, we're working with a range of people. We work a lot within education, which is really fun. And working with head teachers, with executive head teachers across education in the UK, doing mostly inner work,
Mm.
which is incredible. Because that again is going to have that ripple effect, not just on their personal lives, but on the children. Um, and then because of my background, I work with education recruiters. So when I was in recruitment, I used to recruit for schools for like the cover teachers and things like that. So work a lot with those recruiters because again, there's a lot of burnout, a lot of fast pace, work hard, play hard. So that's awesome, being able to have leaders that are open, that will jump on Zoom and cry and just let their emotions out and do breath work for emotional release. I'm like, oh. But the soul work is the personal work that I do with people. So, like I say, I'd say 70 to 80% are adult children of alcoholics, people that have grown up in dysfunction. Often when they hear my story and they hear the kind of workaholic, perfectionist, burnout cycle, they tend to be the people that gravitate, even if they're not adult children. Um, I work very closely with Josh Connolly, which is amazing. So we are his affiliated coaches for Inner You now. So we get to work one-to-one with members of the cohort to go deeper into the healing work, deeper into the inner child healing work. We're also work within his breathing space. And there's, yeah, lots of other stuff bubbling, which is exciting. So yeah, it's a real mix. I was trying to describe it to someone the other day. The workplace stuff and the personal stuff aren't that different.
Mm.
Just tends to be different language. So it's amazing. And I'm doing stuff that I could only ever have dreamt of. And it's just evolving. So it's gone from quite traditional coaching to holistic coaching, hopefully delving into more of the therapy with EMDR and things like that. So I'm just seeing where it goes. I used to be a coach for highly sensitive people. I'm now coaching adult children of alcoholics. So goodness knows where it'll take me, but I'm just loving it.
And so much in so few years too. Like the growth for you. I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, doll. Yeah, it's been hard. It's been
Yeah.
hard. There is, I'm saying to people like setting up a business and going all in, like without a job to back me up, is like self-development on speed.
Hmm.
It's like, here you go, face your shadow every day.
Every day.
But it's meant that I've been able to get out of the comfort zone so much easier than if I hadn't of like faced a lot of my shadow and a lot of my fear and a lot of my limiting beliefs about not being good enough and having to be perfect and all of that. I had to let that go. So I think, yeah, doing my own healing alongside having the business has been incredible, I think, to be able to allow it to flow a lot more and evolve a lot more easily, I think. Yeah. And breath work as well. I forgot to say that. So yeah, we do a lot of breath work now. So whether it's in our local town or traveling around the UK, we support Josh with his live breathworks in the UK, and we do like monthly breathwork for emotional release on like a donation base, just to try and help it reach as many people as possible. So yeah.
Hmm.
I love
I
that.
I was thinking about the inner you community. There about 100 per each time he
Mm.
runs it? Is it about 100 people or so?
Yeah, I think he's had quite a few more as well. But yeah, it's at least that we usually get on the live calls a good 80, 90 people. Yeah.
And it's been interesting because I this is my third time through. And so just hearing people's stories, it's just so eye-opening and heartbreaking, really, that
Yeah.
so many of us and maybe I don't know if it's all humans or what percentage that is of just what you were talking about, that
Yeah.
going through childhood, that presenting the okayness that things
Yeah.
are good or great, and behind the closed doors it's a different story.
Yeah. It it I have to, whenever you probably see me doing this a lot on NEU, because some of the stories I'm like, oof, I'm just gonna have a minute just to hold that. Um and honor the parts of, because I think lots of parts of us come up, don't they, when we're hearing these stories, but power of being seen and witnessed for some people that have never had that, been gaslit, ignored, like to be witnessed in such a safe space. Um, and I think even just like you were saying about being the witness to someone's story can be healing in itself. Like a little part of me will be like, oh, I feel seen. That happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I felt like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is beautiful. And I think have like when shame can't survive being spoken. So getting it out and knowing you're not weird, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, I think those moments when you start your healing journey, when someone just nods and just goes, I can imagine, you're like, what? Because you're so used to be like being shut down or someone glossing over it. So yeah, it's incredible space, isn't it? Like I can't even describe it. I wish I could succinctly how powerful it is, but yeah, it's so lush to have you in there again. And yeah, I think it's my fourth, yeah, it'd be my fourth one. And every time something new comes up, a part of me that is ready to be seen, like that's amazing.
And I think that's a good I lost my word just to speak that
Yeah.
that it is layered and that
Yeah.
it's normal, that
Mhm.
that maybe something you had no idea
Yeah.
was in you.
Mhm.
When there's a readiness and a safety, it'll be like, I'm here. I'm ready to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why the journey is lifelong, isn't it? Our mind, our body will signal when there's something ready. And as much as a part of me is like, are we going to do this now? Like, can I get the certificate? No, doll, sorry. You got a while yet, but it's okay.
And even those words that you just spoke of, you're not weird, you're not broken. Like, and back to Josh's, questioning about how society could be different. I think it's knowing that it's just removing judgment. It's
Mhm.
just judgment on ourselves and judgment from other people and judging other people. I think so then we can still go through journeys like this,
Yeah.
but in a safe way and sooner
Yeah.
to get to have all those feelings without, because I think that's what holds people back is the self-judgment, the judgment from others.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So many of us have such a loud inner
Yeah,
dialogue, don't we? Such a critical voice. And I think those spaces are incredible to help calm some of those voices, or at least normalize it.
exactly.
Um, but in a way, it feels really weird saying it, but like would we be here having these conversations if lockdown hadn't happened? And that, like, that's what I find absolutely fascinating, of like, would these spaces be here on Zoom? Would we be doing some of these things? Like, it's, yeah, that's
I
something
don't
I'm going
think so. Because that's when this part of my story I told, it was 2019 when I got really sick. So it was right into 2020 when I was forced to find that community, like we mentioned earlier. And so I find so much gratitude for that too. It was such a shift
to.
for so many people.
Yeah, yeah, really was. Wow, what a few years we all had.
Mhm.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I like to ask, uh, it's the was there resistance for you to look inside? And if so, what was your understanding of what inside is, or did you know there was anything inside, or was there like a fear what was your experience that way?
Yeah, good, great question. So this is another thing Inna you really helped me with. Um, because I have very strong protectors, and this is linked to internal family systems work, but I've got very strong protector parts of me that won't allow me to see, that doesn't want me to go inwards. And one of them I described as my falsely empowered. She, bless her, she kept me really safe in the beginning part of my healing journey, just learning it all.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, now I'm going to train in it, and I'm going to learn all the things and read all the books and the podcast. So she kept me safe for a long time. Um, and yeah, I like, the further I've gone into adult children work and developing my own kind of empowerment groups for adult children, the more I've realized how strong these protectors are in terms of actually preventing certain stages of healing, and how it has to come at the right times, and it's a slow burner. So yeah, lots of resistance, and answer to your question, I still do. Like, there's still parts, but the difference now is I can see it
Mm.
and notice them. Okay, what are you afraid of? Let's have a chat. Let's work out what it is. And it'll be shame, it'll be pain, emotion underneath it all. Um, but yeah, I think for people who have navigated similar circumstances, I think it can be incredibly hard to start taking that armor off. So vulnerability, which you kind of need to do this work and go real deep, that's really hard to find, because you've been the one that looks after everyone else. So when you start to get questioned about the inner stuff, you're kind of like challenging, sorry, every single narrative you've had about yourself. You're like, hold on a minute, what? I'm not okay. So yeah, it was a real slow burner with vulnerability. I think a lot of adult children struggle with intimacy. And I mean that from like friendships, romantic relationships, dynamics within, like, especially more clinical, psychological, therapeutic settings, more traditional, be incredibly hard. Like, that trust between the person that's helping them can be really hard to find. And what will happen for a lot of adult children, myself included, is that part that wants you to resist it, that goes, you don't need help, will really hate some power, like traditional power dynamics of therapy. So that's where somewhere like Josh was my gateway into it healing,
Mm.
because he swore,
Mhm.
he spoke to me like a human being. He didn't sit there as an expert that was going to fix me or heal me. Did none of that. That was what I needed to take those first steps. And I still now know the type of trust and energy exchange that I'm looking for when I'm going to have one-to-one, because I have such strong like armor, that it's a certain type. I can't even explain it or put it into words, but it's someone. Have you seen Stoots, the film? I think it was on Netflix.
Mm.
It was a film about this psychologist, therapist, And like he was the ideal therapist that I wish I'd found years ago, that just spoke to me like a normal human being and had a bit of banter. And do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was a long-winded answer to your question. I wish I'd found Stoots. There was a hella resistance, and there still is. And that's what I've had to accept, that when I find the right humans and the right spaces, I ain't leaving. It's why Josh's space is a lifeline for me, because I facilitate in them, but I'm equally in them. In other coaches that I've put my trust into and big investments in, it's because I was very selective in terms of, do I feel safe with this person? To start peeling off that mask and be intimate. Like someone said recently, like intimacy is into me you see. And that was what I've been like, nope, you ain't going in here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a for anyone out there that's listening going, oh my God, this is me. I see you. Because it's hard. It is, but go gentle and go at your pace, but look for the right people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that because I felt very seen as you shared it. And I've thought a lot about safety and softness, and we it's like we need to learn from the gurus, but we also
Mm.
need to see that the gurus are messy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Josh is this big teddy bear tattooed like softy that's so, just he comes across very genuine.
Yeah.
And I love that about him. And I've thought about therapists that maybe haven't done their own work. They
Hmm.
understand how to help us mentally,
Yeah.
cognitively, which
Yeah.
which is important. And we also need places who have gone like so into the mess
Yeah.
and loved so deeply in the mess
Yeah.
and then came out the other side and it was like, good Lord, that was tough. That was
Mhm.
so hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that again, but I did it. I know how, kind
Yeah.
of. It was a shit show in there, but I'm
Yeah.
here and I'll hold you through it.
Yes. Kudos to the therapists and the counselors and the coaches and any healing practitioners doing the work, because I think it's a real, for me, is that I can only speak from my experience, but I think energetically, I feel when someone's like just coming from a cognitive learning place, I think you feel that you're not co-regulated in that space. You're not, it's an energetic feeling of safety. Um, and yeah, it's why, I have been quite open and challenged, models of psychiatry, psychology, practices that are getting shaken up right now
Mm,
in a good way.
mm,
Um, and I think it's all for the integrity of our work and to do the best we can for the people we serve. We have to do the work. You have to do the work ourselves. Um, yeah, and get rid of this, like you say, this guru expert. It's only going to bite someone in the bum, right? Look at cancel culture. Like, I personally would never want to be on a pedestal. I'm like, I am messy AF. Like, and that's like the balance I try and show on socials, because I don't want anyone to see me as sorted. Like, sometimes I'm crying with snot over my face on the office floor. Like, that's the reality of the
mhm,
situation. So yeah, I think it's really important that when we see that in ourselves, and I think when we really honor that messiness in ourselves, then we can healthily, safely see it in others with compassion. But we have to honor that messy humanness inside, like you mentioned earlier. 100%. You guys are amazing. I can't wait to do your breathworks.
So we love to, well, we want to find out where people can find you.
Yes.
You want to share that?
Amazing. So I'm mainly on Instagram. So yeah, bit sweary. There's lots of deep stuff and a lot of funny memes. So there's a real mix. So that's at I am Jess Frost. Mine and Nick's organization is the 3E space, which is at the _3E_space. Website www.the3espace.com. So yeah, they're the main kind of places that I hang out mostly. So come and connect.
It's been a real gift having you.
It's been a gift being here. You guys are amazing.
I want to come to the UK and see you guys.
Please. Oh my God, we'll come out to you guys as well. Like, yeah, manifesting all the travel, live breath works. Yeah,
Yes.
here for it all. Here for it all. But until then, let's continue connecting on good old Zoom that we're now fully aware of. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
So our final question we love to offer. If you have a message to the world wants to come through, what is it?
You know what? I think it's what I've just said. Embrace the messiness. It will set you free. Like, go get messy, go into the darkness, love, accept, validate what is. Yeah. It will set you free, 100%. Let's be messy humans together.
What a great episode. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Let us know what you took from that. Leave some comments, share with a friend who also might resonate with the story. Subscribe, like, all those things so that we can spread the word about our podcast. And so all of our beautiful stories that we get to hear from our amazing guests get to be shared around the world. We appreciate you as a listener, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Deeper Awareness podcast, where the journey of self-discovery and inner growth continues to unfold. We hope this episode has ignited a spark within you and inspired you to embrace a more conscious and authentic existence by looking within. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to explore the transformative power of breathwork and emotional healing. Continue the conversation and stay connected with us on Instagram. Follow at Deeper Awareness Podcast to receive daily inspiration, valuable tips, and updates on our latest episodes and offerings. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights from today's show, so feel free to share them in the comments below or tag us in your posts. Your engagement and feedback mean the world to us as we strive to continue to create content that resonates and empowers our incredible community. Together, we can continue exploring the depths of consciousness, fostering genuine connections, and supporting each other on our transformative journeys. This episode is brought to you by You Belong Breathwork, your destination for transformative healing and self-discovery. At You Belong Breathwork, we believe in the power of breath to unlock the deepest parts of ourselves, leading to profound insights and a greater sense of connection and belonging. Whether you're seeking emotional healing, a deeper connection with yourself, or a path to authenticity, our breathwork sessions, retreats, and coaching programs are designed to guide you on this transformative journey. Our experienced facilitators are here to hold space for you as you explore the depths of your consciousness and discover the infinite potential within. Visit youbelongbreathwork.com to explore our offerings and download a free guided breathwork session. Thank you for being a part of our Deeper Awareness community. Stay connected, stay curious, and may you embrace your true essence with love and compassion. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next episode.